Yep, go ahead.
So hopefully you all saw the agenda. Mostly what I want to do is go through that revised list of goals and strategies with you guys. I think, the next step in this process would be, in my mind, either to get feedback from the organizations and staff that we would want to actually implement the plan. So if you can, as you might have seen, and I'll screen share in a minute. One of the things that I did here with the revised version is sort of put some organization or staff person's name next to every strategy. Because again, I think if we're going to have a strategy, we need to have some organization willing to at least say that they would do it. And so that's the kind of the main focus of this revision, is thinking about not only kind of what are the strategies we want to pursue, but who is going to take the lead, which doesn't mean that other folks can't help them or partner with them. But what organization is going to take the lead on making sure that happens? So what I want us to talk about, I want to make sure that this steering committee is good with the suggested goals and strategies that we have in here, because the next steps would be, maybe what we should talk about after we go through it is, do we want to try to have a next forum where we invite the specific entities that would have to be on board to lead these strategies, and make sure that they have an opportunity to provide input and buy-in before we go to the next step, which would be getting having another public forum to get feedback generally from residents about the strategies and goals in here. So again, the big goal for this meeting is for you all, the steering committee, to feel comfortable enough with the suggested goals and strategies that are in here, that we take that next step of getting feedback from the lead organizations and the residents. So that's the main part of the agenda for today. And then again, we'll talk after we do that about what the timeline might be for the rest of the way that this housing plan plays out. Once we have goals and strategies that everyone's comfortable with and that we've provided the opportunity for folks to give feedback on, then we really put the whole plan together, and by we, I mean me, and then give it to you to review, because we will have done the various pieces of the plan, the housing needs analysis, coming up with goals and strategies to meet the identified housing needs. And so then we just need to put it all together and get a draft out. So with that, does that make sense to everybody? Does anybody have questions about that?
So when you put in the agencies or whatever for the implementation, is that its own section, or are you just in each section or throughout the plan, are you putting in just the way it's, I'm just curious the way you have it set up, right?
Yeah, so
okay, I see.
Yeah, so I just added into the strategies table another column where we can talk about what entity it makes sense to lead each strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we can decide later like how we want to present it in the final plan document, but that's sort of the core of what I did here, was take some of the suggestions that you all had from the last meeting, update this a little bit more, and then add this column about who's going to do these things that we think are potentially a good idea to do. And then you might have noticed, if you had a chance to look at it, one of the other things I added in here, and again we can go through this, is some of the information that I think would be helpful to have kind of in a sidebar or in a appendix or something to explain some of these things that people might not be familiar with, or provide a little bit more information on resources. And so that that we don't need to like necessarily have that information in the strategies table, but that might be helpful for folks to have when they read the plan itself. So I took some of that out of some of the strategies and kind of suggested it as a sidebar or appendix that we can put in the plan to give a little bit more context and information. So if you guys don't mind, I think I'll just kind of, one of the things that I, as I mentioned, I sort of put in a legend with a bunch of the entities that I think could play a role in implementing some of these strategies. And I put plan implementation kind of up front. What I think we talked about a little bit at the last meeting, and what I think Starlee and Sharon were suggesting is potentially having a subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Commission that could help with implementation of the strategies. I'm wondering about, and this could be a subcommittee of Planning and Zoning, but having an implementation committee, that has members from Planning and Zoning, but also maybe some of the other core implementers or agencies that could meet just maybe twice a year, 4 times a year, to make sure that these things are getting done, or talk about them. Maybe they're not needed anymore, or maybe something different is needed. So I just sort of, for shorthand, I called that the implementation committee. It could be a subcommittee of P&Z, or it could be a couple P&Z members plus some folks from some other entities. And I know Claudia likes to go to meetings, so we'd have her on the implementation committee. Oh, let me just get this in case it's Sharon. Hang on. Hello? Hi, Sharon. So we're all in it. Did you click on the link that I sent to you today? Oh, so do the one today. It got changed.
She's using the old one.
Well, you mean you want the meeting ID and? Okay, let's see. The meeting ID is 795-950-7035. And the passcode is 907148. Okay, thanks. Bye.
So I had it as a recurring meeting, only out to last month's meeting. So I had to repost it, and this meeting ID is the one we use for all of our land use boards. So I'm not sure wwhy we had a different one before, but
this will be the one we use going forward.
Yeah, because that's what we use for everything.
Okay.
And it makes it easiest for like people that like to go to public meetings. I don't know who that is, but
I'm just gonna make myself a note. All right. So I think Sharon will be joining us any minute. Starlee, what do you think about, do you want to keep this as a subcommittee of planning and zoning, or do you like this idea of an implementation committee?
I think the implementation committee sounds like a better idea. As there are different components of the city that are going to need to be involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see having members of P&Z inside of it, but then adding other agency members into it.
Okay, great. Do you guys think, is that something you think like the mayor's office would set up in the way that she sort of appointed you guys?
Yeah, especially if it's not a subcommittee, if it's its own thing,
Yeah.
the city council probably need to do it.
Oh, the
I
city
agree.
council.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
They'll have to appoint members once we figure out who we want that to be.
Okay. And then again, just these ideas of maybe having at least an annual meeting with the folks, who are the lead entities. And I believe we talked about the rest of these. Oh, this is something we talked about at the last meeting, which is, again, there's a lot of strategies in here around increasing awareness for residents to understand what some of the resources and programs out there that are dealing with some of the stuff that exist. And so, for this implementation committee to think about a communications plan, I think you guys had brought up at the last meeting, some great ideas of, existing entities out there like United Way and the Chamber and the library that can get that information out to residents. So it's just kind of putting together a plan for, what the important information is to get out and getting it to those groups so they can get it to residents.
So Jocelyn, is there I haven't looked at the statute in a while. Is there a requirement for regular implementation meetings in the statute? Or is it just
No.
to have the plan?
There's no requirement.
So there's no guidelines or anything? Okay.
No, it just, as you know, like as a planner, it's nice to see if people put all this work into putting a plan together, that there is a plan.
Don't put it on a shelf.
Getting it done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so
I just didn't know. Like I said, I just hadn't looked at that statute in a while, so
Yeah.
I couldn't remember whether it had any guidance for anything like that.
no, the statute itself is pretty bare bones. It just says you must have, you shall adopt a
Yeah.
plan every 5 years.
Mhm.
And that it shall include, the creation of affordable housing units. So that's pretty much it. It's like one paragraph.
Yep.
Yeah,
right.
I could see us meeting I'm saying us, a planning committee, every 2 or 3 months, not necessarily a monthly meeting.
Quarterly,
But-
maybe.
Right.
Yeah, quarterly with one annual meeting where everybody is listed into the results so far or plans that we have to present.
And just maybe do an annual summary report or something for city council, something
Right.
like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna add that. And I heard Sharon volunteer. She said we.
Semantics, it's just the wording.
All right.
I have had more people talk to me about affordable housing, not even knowing that I'm on this committee lately. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot of folks more aware of the issue now than
Right.
ever before.
There's more press, I think, as well.
So Sharon, I just said briefly before you got on that kind of our goal for going through these is to make sure that you guys on the steering committee are comfortable with them, comfortable with bringing them to either a next forum, community-wide forum to get feedback, and or a specific forum where we invite, some of the other entities on this list, to make sure that they are okay with the strategies that they are being tasked with.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with either way. I know that we didn't have great public participation the last time, but including those other entities is really important if we want to find success.
Yeah, okay. So I don't, the first goal again, which we've had on our list since the last time as well, is just continuing to invest in existing buildings. I was thinking either a sidebar or an appendix that kind of tells people about, and gives people an example of what has been done. Again, just so for inspiration, I guess.
So that's how our POCD is set up. It's got
Okay.
little facts and figures inside almost inside the margins. That might
Right.
be, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we could do that with some of these, and these are just, potential examples we could do that with.
Well, that's important though, because sometimes you have doubting Thomases. And so to have the example of what's in the works or what's been successful is really important.
Great, yeah, and I think it gives some context to the strategies. I was curious, so I kind of, this is what I kind of whittled this section down to. And I wasn't sure if any of you had an opinion about whether, I know there's another section where we talk about incentive housing zone sites. The Hendy Stone Container site is one of the incentive housing zone sites. I don't know if we want to call it out specifically, but it does seem like a property that, could lend itself to this type of redevelopment.
It's always talked about because it's a major site in the downtown district. So
Okay.
Right. And I've seen some incredible plans that people have tossed around looking at as we're trying to look at moving forward. So I think including it is important.
And I did get the plan, I can't remember what it's called, that Goldman and York did for that site.
Was that back when they were thinking about bus transportation from there?
It's June 2015.
Yeah.
Um,
That might have been when they were talking about the state taking over part of that for transportation department,
okay.
for buses, whatever.
Okay. All right, everyone okay with those strategies and who we've tasked them to, which is Rista?
yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
But I
And
just
then
talked to her about that site today. So she deals with it all the time anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know she's on it. All right, great. And then the next goal is around this, the 2 and 3 family homes that are pretty unique to Torrington in terms of the number of them and the neighborhoods that have the 2 and 3 families, and trying to figure out whether there is a way to help the owners of those kind of make improvements, and or especially if they have vacant units, can we get those back into the inventory of rental housing?
Yeah, I think this is important to include. I know just having served on the Small Cities Committee and working with some opportunities to help people improve their rental units or improve the exterior of their building was really important.
Do you guys know of existing programs that actually help make improvements like dealing with mold and asbestos or lead paint? I know there are resources out there to tell you what you have to do, but that's different than helping you do it.
I thought
Right.
I thought Deep or somebody had a lead abatement. I don't know if I don't know if it was grants or a revolving loan program.
Okay, I'll look into it some more.
Yeah, for lead paint anyway.
The only thing is where you say there, use HUD inspection list. That inspection list is very basic, really minimal, just so you know.
Yeah, I think that was something maybe you brought up at the last.
Yeah.
I mean, you could use it, but it's a very minimal standard. I mean, like, very.
Well, so do we know what the fire marshal does when I assume it's a him, when he goes to inspect 3-family homes? Does he have an inspection list?
He does, but I'm not sure exactly what they look at when they go in there.
Right.
Yeah, I know they have a list of the 3 families.
And I
We do have a list.
assume he's not checking for things like lead paint or mold or asbestos.
It's
It might be
mostly,
worth-
when I've been with him, it's been mostly smoke detectors and, you know, clear entrances and exits. And
Right.
so, you know, that's at least when I've been with him.
But it might be an agency to work with moving forward.
I mean, if he'd be willing to at least sort of have information about these things, if he notices them, you know, like,
Yeah,
Yeah, some kind of a flyer at least that he could leave with them.
so then in terms of a lead on that, should we make it the fire marshal or should we make it the blight task force?
well, the fire marshal's on the blight task force, so
Right,
Yeah.
it could be either or both. Because he goes to almost all the meetings,
okay.
unless he's on vacation or something.
Yeah.
Um,
One-stop shopping. That sounds good to me.
All right, and then, you know, again, I was, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what Claudia was saying about very minimal, and I agree with that. But I equate it with having school district policies. You can go the very minimal, which is what was required, or school districts can go above the minimal and add their own school policies. So it might be something to look at as a committee to see what minimal is and evaluate, you know, and think what we think might be in addition to the HUD inspection list for Torrington, I mean.
Okay. And then, again, this is just kind of ideas for providing more information to property owners who might have a vacant unit. You know, maybe they just bought the property and they've never been a landlord. And so this is a link to some landlord training courses that Waterbury Neighborhood Housing Services runs. I don't actually know if I'm actually guessing that the CHAFA programs that exist are probably not going to be helpful for small multifamilies like that. So I might look at, I have an email into them to ask the question of whether a 2 or 3 family home, whether really it'd be practical to get a CHAFA mortgage or not. And then the sidebars are just, again, trying to describe some of the programs that could help with lead paint abatement, the Healthy Homes program, and Rista actually told me about this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody okay with those?
Yes, ma'am.
Addressing blight concerns and absentee landlords, that's the next goal. I know Sharon, at the last meeting, you talked about this, the recycling committee was working on.
Yes, and we're finding great success. You know, we could do better, but we're getting a lot of requests for permits. They're free to pick up bulk items. And USA has agreed and are doing, they're going to houses where there are couches or mattresses outside where they have not called up to have them picked up, and putting hang tags on the door explaining that they just need to call or email and get themselves on the list, and they will come back and pick the item up.
Okay.
So
I
that's
did it.
starting to help. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I did it myself a couple weeks ago. It's very easy.
Yeah, it really
Okay.
is. And I'm seeing less items out for long periods of time now. So that's cool. So Linda's very happy with the way that's going. We're also working on some other projects for recycling and trying to incorporate local nonprofits such as 5 Points, Kids Play in the library, and educating local residents through different programs and events.
So this is another increasing awareness issue? Is that right?
Yeah.
What is the program called, or who do they call?
It's we have a recycling coordinator, Linda Orr, ORR. She works under Ray Drew, Public Works. And they contact that office to request the permit.
I did the online form. It's real easy.
It is easy. It's very easy.
I had to get rid of a recliner and a rocking chair because I got a new couch.
Good. Enjoy the couch.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also a plan, and I'm not sure we're going to put this in there yet, but I know that I've been talking with Linda and Ray and the recycling committee about a potential plan to set up property next to the wastewater treatment plant shared with Harwinton, where we would be able to drop off mattresses, which would be taken care of by the group in Connecticut that disposes of recycles them actually. And also for brush and other recycled items. So that would be a nice addition to what we already have at Bow Grove, which is not big. So people can recycle products and items and reduce blight in front yards and backyards.
Okay. Claudia, this next one was something that you brought up at a meeting, at the last meeting, which was if, if a resident tenant was in a blighted apartment, that they'd be able to pay their rent to the court rather than to their landlord if some problem needed to be addressed. Is that something that that a tenant can just do, or how would they know?
I'll have to find out. I know where I used to work in Jersey, you could do this, but I'll find out.
Okay. And, there's another strategy in here that we can talk about around, this is something that the town of Winchester is considering, forming this fair rent commission. Again, and that's meant to deal with, tenant issues if they are either their rent is being raised unreasonably or they've got some kind of building or health code violation happening. Maybe this would be a forum for, I don't know, letting residents know or tenants know about that option.
Well, it's not for a grievance against raising the rent.
Right.
It's a grievance against the fact that you feel that the landlord hasn't lived up to their end of the lease agreement in whatever fashion it is. Now, if the lease agreement is over and the landlord goes to raise the rent, however much, that's not something that I think would be covered under here. This is for grievances where the tenant feels that the landlord is not in compliance.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be especially useful with those 3-family homes again. 2 and 3 family homes, because I know I only can speak to my own experience with Torrington Downtown Partners, but we have some strict guidelines that we follow regarding lead abatement. We had our maintenance team trained for lead abatement, things of that nature. So I think most of the apartment complexes maybe are holding strong, but perhaps not. But some of the smaller landlords may not be paying attention, especially if they're absentee landlords.
All right, so Claudia, you're not sure if this is,
I'll find this out tomorrow. I'll find
Okay.
out from my attorney.
all right, the next section is about first-time home buyer options. And I will tell you guys that since we last met, I had a meeting with the mayor around trying to assist the Torrington Affordable Housing Organization. Not sure if I mentioned it to you guys at the last meeting, but they currently have either 3 or 4 vacant houses that are meant to be for first-time home buyers, but they need significant rehab. So we met with the mayor to talk about whether we could utilize some repaid, reprogrammed small cities CDBG funding to get those repairs done so that the homes could be resold to first-time home buyers. So that's an ongoing discussion where we've been we're planning another meeting with Cindy at Torrington Affordable Housing and some of her board members about those 3 properties and sort of in general, are there ways that we can support that group that does, provide first-time home buyer options. And it does sound like they need board members. I guess they've lost quite a few board members. So that's why this strategy is on here about helping them recruit new board members with the needed expertise to help them. The other ones I think we talked about last time.
One of the problems that they have is that it's very difficult to get a mortgage if you're doing things the way they're doing it, which is they own the property and I guess they lease it to the homeowner. So when the homeowner purchases, they're really only purchasing the property, house on rented property. And a lot of banks won't do that. So maybe they need to develop a relationship with a bank that would be amenable to at least trying to assist them in that. But that's I get phone calls at least 10 a week from people looking for them. And before I can even tell them that I'm not them.
Yeah.
They tell me their whole life history and everything that's wrong and why they can't get a mortgage and blah, 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 blah. And I hear it over and over and over.
Yeah.
So that's an issue.
Yeah, what I'm hoping is that when we meet with Cindy and her board, we can talk about that model that they're using. It's also, she was telling me some of the challenges that she's faced. I guess recently they increased, they had a very low income limit. And what it meant was, I think it was like they were having households earning like $30,000 a year buying a house.
How many thousand?
30,000.
No way.
And so she was like, so what would happen is they would get in there and then whatever, what happens, like the first time your car breaks down, then you can't pay your mortgage. So they did increase the limit. So I think now it's 40,000. But anyway,
I think what they need to consider doing
Yeah,
is changing their whole operation. So perhaps they can sell the land with the home and maybe they can hold the mortgage and start that way, or to get new money to get new properties and build more if that's what they want to do. But they seem to kind of be going out of business. So if I were them, I would just make an arrangement so you can buy the property as well. And you have to make the income limit something that can sustain that. $30,000, you can't sustain a house.
yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And Cindy agrees with that. But yeah, no, I think this is an opportunity to meet with them, figure out where they are, and kind of maybe regroup about trying to, like you're saying, come up with a more sustainable model for
Yeah.
moving forward. I do think it would be good to have an entity in the city of Torrington that was devoted to first-time home buyer options. But we need to have a model that's sustainable.
Yeah, I was gonna, if it's a model that's gonna work, it's great. If not, what's the point?
Right. And there is, there is this new, the Northwest Connecticut Habitat for Humanity is building in Torrington now. I mean, they're just building one house. I think they have another lot as well. But Habitat, for example, they do the mortgages themselves.
Yeah,
So
and that's a smart way to do it, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, that's another, I don't know how much appetite that Habitat has for more houses in Torrington.
But
But
I'm saying even for Torrington affordable housing, that's,
yeah.
a doable model.
Right. So yeah, so we're going to keep talking with that entity as this process goes along to try to figure out how to, again, either give them some more support and, or, at the very least, try to get those 3 or 4 vacant houses back, sold to first-time home buyers, back online. So let's see, is there any other strategies on this list that you guys have questions about, or?
I just wanted to say that the last one, consider how properties that become the property of the city due to unpaid taxes could be renovated and reused by nonprofit entities. When I was growing up in Brooklyn, they used to sell you properties for $1. You had to commit, you had to get money and show that you committed and sign a contract, et cetera, for the repairs to the building. But it was a great way, especially in that era. Brooklyn was decaying and
Right.
people came in, they bought the property for $1. They may have had to get a loan for like 200 grand to fix it, but they did. And it worked. It worked. It was great.
So do you think that this is the strategy as written is good, or do you want me to make tweaks to it?
Well, I'm just trying to give an example because you're just saying, consider how properties, I think the city would have to, be in that conversation. I'm just trying to say that it worked very well in other areas, that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah, I can use an example. The house next door to me was blighted. The woman died, her son never took care of the property. It was taken back by the bank. The bank was in the shore area of the state. They put a for sale sign up and then wouldn't accept any offers because they wanted high amount of money. And I contacted the blight officer who went out and looked at the house because the gutters were falling off, the roof was leaking, screen door was hanging off. There was just a whole lot of awful overgrown stuff. And she went out and they declared it a blight property, at which point, and unbeknownst to me at the time, the people who, a young woman with a teenager, she went to the bank or went to the real estate, and offered her price again. And with the help of the city, helping, acknowledge to the real estate company that it was a blighted property. She was able to buy the house for that amount of money, and it is beautiful now, inside and out.
That's
So,
fabulous.
you know, I think that with our blighted properties, that kind of can tie in with this last, how the properties become property of the city. I think that can work as an excellent example.
Okay, great. And then this home energy solutions, I think that's something that Starley brought up at the last meeting, was the programs that can help reduce energy costs for homeowners.
Yeah,
So we could do a sidebar about that.
yeah, and that's worth emphasizing. There's also a rent assistance from the state for senior citizens. I know they can get like $500 to $700 a year towards their rent, so it might be something else that's worth including.
Is that the rebate program?
I think. I don't know enough about it. I just see it written up in the Sullivan Center newsletter. And I knew one woman who did, and I think she got about $550 or something. But it was something, you know, it's something that helped her. So,
Yeah. Well,
I think if you go online and you see the Sullivan Center newsletter, I think it's usually in their updates on, you know, energy assistance and things of that nature.
yeah, I looked into that rebate program. And yeah, we could do a sidebar or something about that.
I don't think that's renter's rebate, because I know all my clients go and get renter's rebate, even though their rent is, you know, only charged according to their income, they still get renter's rebate. It really doesn't seem to have anything to do with, you know, energy.
Oh, not
No,
energy.
yeah.
I'm just talking the renter's rebate, not, you know, in addition to any energy savings they
Oh.
make on a different thing, different direction. But this woman lived in Waterbury and was getting assistance rental rebate that she said was helping her with her bills. So that's
Okay.
that's all I know about it.
Yeah, I was talking with the assessor about that, trying to figure out what the income eligibility was. Yeah, I can put that in here. Okay, then the next section is about mixed income housing, like, you know, like Riverfront, which is being developed now. And just kind of, again, encouraging that model of, you know, potentially using the incentive housing zones and creating those developments that have, you know, some market rate units and some affordable units mixed together.
Right. And that's the important thing, I think. When I was at the presentation, the first presentation and only presentation on Waters Way, and the people who were presenting it had beautiful multi-page plans. I'm sure, Jeremy, you've seen it. I
Yes.
mean, it included everything from a pool to pet washing stations and workout room. And so I did ask if they were thinking about including affordable housing, or would it be just market value? And they hadn't made up their mind yet because of finances. So,
Yep.
you know, that's something we have to focus on.
So so Waters Way, is that is, do they have their permits?
No,
No,
this was an information session they did.
Okay,
we've just gone through preliminary meetings with them, and I think they're still working on their financing.
Yeah, I do too.
how many units are they thinking about?
I don't remember where they left, because there was going to be possibly a combination of residential and some first floor commercial there too. So I think it might fluctuate a little.
They were
And they
also
had-
included some apartments they were calling dormitory housing, because it would
Right.
have 3 bedrooms with 3 bathrooms, so that if we had, you know, roommates coming in together.
They wanted to integrate some of the art stuff in a
Right.
section of it. So if someone was in here temporarily, they would do something cooperative with the Warner or with
With
Nutmeg
5
or
points or
yeah, or
even the
5 points,
hospital. Yeah, and like the hospital is often looking for temporary housing for visiting nursing services, so
Mhm.
that's something else that we should be considering.
Is there anything being proposed for 136 Water Street or 160 Church Street?
So 160 Church Street, Rista's looking to develop that for a trailhead, for a city lot and trailhead.
Okay,
And same, so just ask Rista about both of those, because 136 Water, she's got concept plans.
Yeah, and they were talking about expanded parking too in that area.
Yeah. But also tying it into the greenway.
Yeah, exactly. You know, one of the things that came up, Jeremy, with that Watersway property, which is something that we might want to look at somehow. I don't know. We've got too much on our plate already, but they were talking about the fact that they were going to be a little bit, and this was just concept, so it's nothing in writing at all, but it was going to be a little bit fewer parking spots than we had in our stipulations, because they said that younger people take public transportation and they would have cars available to use or to rent, you know, for, you know, an excursion or whatever. I think that we need to look at our transportation issues as well when we're looking at housing, because we
Yeah.
don't really have it.
So
Not
that
much.
site, so that site, since it's in the downtown district, doesn't actually have a parking minimum. It's going to be whatever the developers find suitable, really, for the site,
Right.
which will probably, you know, obviously we'll go back and forth with
Oh, sure.
the Planning and Zoning Commission at, you know, when the time comes, and with us, with staff here. So,
Oh, no, I understand that. What I'm just saying is the public transportation aspect of it.
oh, yeah.
We don't have that adequately enough if that's what people are hoping to plan on. You know, it's an issue we should be looking at towards the future here.
I think at the very least, we could add an additional stop for the state bus for the, you know,
Right.
but I don't know what you would do besides that at this point.
Yeah, because the other buses, I think, stop at 3. You know, the little
I think
local
so.
buses. Yeah, because of funding as well, so.
all right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get us through this in the next 8 minutes.
Okay.
So the next, I sort of combined, we had 2 sections. One was creating more housing options for seniors, and another one's keeping seniors in their homes. I just sort of combined those 2 sections into one. Claudia, I didn't know, I just thought it would be worth, you know, if people don't know about Slavey Village, to know that that's kind of on deck. Is this okay?
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. We just got our HUD approval to do it on, it's called disposition. I had to take part of public housing property and make it no longer public housing. It's still owned by the housing authority, but we only took 8 months.
I was just gonna say, congratulations, that was speedy.
That was good.
Yes, and I have the email that says, oh, this should take 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Thank
So,
you for
yeah.
hanging in there.
But we finally got it. Yep.
Good deal.
good, congrats. So again, these other things we've talked about, you know, maybe creating a checklist for how to create accessory apartments, outreach to residents who might be interested in that. And then things like the housing rehab loan program, which can obviously be used by non-seniors as well.
Right.
But really anyone income eligible could utilize that program. And we could do a sidebar on that as well. Any questions or comments on those strategies?
I think one of the things that you have to stress with the accessory apartments is not only is it, you know, lots of times people my age, their parents are older and they need an accessory apartment. Okay, fine. But when the parents pass, they have an accessory apartment. They're now at retirement age that they can rent out to someone, you know, to a
Right.
friend, which is what happened with one of my friends. And she's now renting the accessory apartment of mutual friends, and it's working out fabulously. It's just, people have to be able to think a little bit.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point, and that's what sort of what I was thinking for this sidebar is, like, again, describing how, maybe you build it, like you're saying, maybe you build it for your parents, and then when you get older, you live in it and you rent the main house out to a family.
You could do that, or vice versa. You could still keep your house and rent out the accessory apartment, but it gives you a lot more options.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. All right. So then I just thought it was worth putting in here, making sure to preserve what you have now. And, again, this idea of maybe checking in with property owners to make sure that, I'm just thinking about expiring affordability restrictions on some of the non-Torrington Housing Authority properties, and whether that'll be an issue at some point.
Yes, if the rents continue to be as high as they are, it's going to be a huge issue.
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there anything else that any of you can think of that would help preserve the existing affordable housing stock?
I think we just, it's keeping people in the loop and keeping them aware and pointing out the pros and cons of not maintaining or preserving, and making sure you're up to date on your needs and observant of any restrictions, deed restrictions, or on whatever aspects of your home ownership needs to be attended to.
Did you guys hear about the fact that Woodland Hills Apartments was just sold
Yes, I was going to mention that.
for $15 million?
Yeah,
Jeremy, you could probably explain that better because I touched base with you on an email.
yeah. Well, a chunk of that money was used, the sale price was used to go back into the buildings for improvements. So they did like not a lot of exterior work. There was some stairs, I think the stairs were all replaced in all the units, but there was a lot of interior improvements that were done. And we kind of built in that sale price, but by the new owner. It's in process right now.
And I did look up that entity, WNC, which is the entity that built it or that purchased it.
Mhm.
It's a national nonprofit.
Mhm.
Kind of interesting, but I mean, it does look like they're using low-income housing tax credits, so those come with a affordability restriction.
Yeah.
Right.
Obviously, it will expire at some point, but hopefully it'll be in place for I don't know, 30
Yeah,
years.
but that's still something that should be on a target watch list.
Yeah.
Right.
But they have said there's no intention on changing the affordability makeup of the property.
Right, but that's now. So
Right, that's right now, right.
because if Elon Musk can buy Twitter, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years.
Yep.
Look at Georgetown.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so what do you guys think about this strategy about potentially considering a fair rent commission? Is that something you think is worth putting in here, or
So I have a standing meeting with the mayor every Monday. So I wonder if I should get her take on this.
yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah,
I was
Yeah.
thinking about the blight task force and what they do. And there's overlap there, I think. So
And it's something
yeah.
that you can include the building and health codes so that, if it's in black and white that something is found to be deficient, we just need somebody to agree with the tenant that it's deficient. So that could be a fire marshal, that could be a health officer. Or
I
your
think-
building department.
Like, I think where this idea came from is from Katie Vale who's the social services director in the town of Winchester. And she just gets, she just gets a lot of calls every day from people who are living in substandard conditions in
Yeah.
town, who just don't know what to do in terms of getting their landlords to respond to their concerns. So I think that's what she was trying to address, and maybe it's already being addressed through the blight task force or something else in Torrington.
Yeah,
But yeah, Jeremy, I think if you could ask the mayor,
I'm just
whether
making
that's
a,
something.
I'm just making a note for myself I like to just, because I'll forget by Monday.
notes are
Think-
good.
I
that
think you
right?
need, I think you need to change the name of it, though.
Okay.
I don't think fair rent is accurate.
Yeah, I think it's a statutory thing that's been talked about. But
safe-
yeah, I think you could call it whatever you want. So do
Like
you want me to?
a safe housing commission. or
I
something.
think that's perfect.
I know years ago, I was in EMT and I was in some homes on calls where I wanted to report them myself.
Yeah.
I have them that do report it in my own, yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe it could just be a committee or, I mean, I don't know. And maybe, again, maybe it could go through maybe complaints could go through the blight task force. And it's just like a safe housing initiative or something.
Yeah.
Well, all these complaints generally go through the building department, so.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's what I was in building department. And then of course you have the health department. So if it's a health code violation, then it becomes even easier to handle.
Yeah, I mean, I always drive by them just to see if there's something I can do for exterior zoning violations, but it's
Right.
not that often.
No, but if it's a heating issue or a mold issue or, a lack of adequate electricity or safe wiring.
And then the last one is around directing residents to services if they're in danger of becoming homeless. I was thinking that we could put in here a brief description of Fish and the Gathering Place and 211. Is that
Yeah.
okay with you guys?
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay, so, I guess, I just want to make space to ask whether there's any other goals or ideas or, challenges that you feel like aren't addressed in any of these goals or strategies.
I looked through this afternoon for a couple of hours and I don't see anything. There are things outside of this that either concern me or I find interesting. One is for some cities in the state of Connecticut to try to meet their housing goals by making it happen in adjacent communities and not in their own, which is totally against what I think. But the other thing I found was interesting, and Jocelyn, you may be more aware of this, is that group called The Villages. It's up out of Canaan, I think, and they're working a partnership with Osher Lifelong Learning out of Berkshire Community, where it's coordinating services for senior citizens who are aging in place. And it includes, the program provides transportation, home repairs, landscape and gardening advice, pet care, basic tech support, things like that, that I know a lot of our seniors are not comfortable with. It might be worth talking with the Sullivan Senior Center about something like that. We also have,
Where did you say it was?
it was in the Republican American on Saturday, the 23rd. And it says it takes villages to care for seniors. And it's a program that's got, they're working through the college. They've got 54 members, 64 volunteers and one paid staff. But they're getting people together so they can discuss what they need and giving them some direction on where they can find some things. I think our senior
Is
center
there-
probably. does
there
something like
anything-
that.
Could you send me whatever you're looking at?
Sure.
Um, okay, anything else that isn't in here? Okay, and there's still time, so if you guys think of other things as you're looking at this. So what do you want to do next? I'm gonna stop sharing. In terms of next steps, should we, invite, I guess we could do a couple things. We could, outside of a meeting, send this to some of these other entities, and try to get their feedback, maybe invite them to our next meeting if they can make it, to give us their feedback.
That
But
would be
send it to
good.
them in advance.
Either that, or if they want to just send something to you in writing because they don't feel like going to a meeting. If they have some ideas they wanted to share, but I would like to be able to hear from them.
Okay, so we'll send it to those lead organizations and ask for feedback before the next meeting.
Are you going to include like the Litchfield Board of Realtors? Or, groups like that?
Do you want me to?
I'd be interested in their feedback because they're the ones who are selling housing. What's difficult for them? What are they seeing? What are their trends? What are the difficulties facing first home buyers that they see? Or they, I get torn between, are they trying to sell the biggest house for the best buck, or they have programs to work with first home buyers that provide some options?
All right, so what are the other entities that you think would be good for us to send this to and get their feedback?
I think the chamber, especially the manufacturing coalition, because they're hiring and looking for people to move to the area, so housing is important to them.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to hear from Joel at Senior Center, the Sullivan Senior Center.
Yep.
Planning and zoning member. We're all on the same team.
We have one.
Yeah, that's right. I can count you as that, though. Sorry.
And
The mayor is on every committee, so is it?
maybe the Economic Development Committee too.
And the
Yeah.
Blight Committee.
And
Yeah.
Blight and the fire marshal.
Okay. Okay, so I will get that out and ask them to either get us their comments in writing or come to the next meeting to give us their feedback. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good.
So the next meeting of this group is May 24th. And, I think once we get that kind of stakeholder feedback, then what we'll be working towards is having, so at the May 24th meeting, I will hope to review with you. Okay, well, I guess this is the question is, what do you guys think in terms of the next community forum? Do you think it would be better to just present the goals and strategies and do polling and get feedback specifically on those, which is what I'm doing in many of the towns? Or would it be better to just have a draft plan with everything in it, including the goals and strategies and the assessment of the housing needs and everything else, and then have another community forum on the draft plan?
I think it's easier for people to critique a full draft,
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
whether they're, valuable critiques or not, we can weigh later.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get more participation in the future.
Yeah, we had, what do we have? 50, over 50 people sign up and 20 show up.
Exactly.
So
And one
including,
spoke.
and
Like,
no, and
only one spoke.
yeah, and those, but those, of those 20, we counted.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it's timing. Would it be, is it, I don't know what other communities are doing with their community forum, if they're still on Zoom, if they're doing it at, in the afternoon, or are they doing it an evening thing to get more people when they're home?
Most of the, like, when we're trying to get the wider community to come, we usually do them in the evening.
Yeah,
Some towns are now doing them in person.
We're doing
So, well,
everything
let's keep thinking about, I mean, the other thing that we could do, in one of the towns I'm working with, I'm doing a specific presentation at the senior center during a lunch where they're already there. So, that's something we could think about if there are meetings already happening or events or something that we could go and present, some summary of the draft plan and get feedback, and kind of meet people where they are instead of asking them to come to another meeting.
that's good. I think the senior center has implemented most of their programs again, although I think, but I could be wrong, that they were still limiting lunch to a certain number of people, but that could be wrong.
Okay, so for the next meeting, if you guys can be thinking about, again, once we have a draft plan, what would be the good, because we want to try to get them on the calendar probably sooner rather than later. So
Definitely.
what would be the good ways of getting to people and getting feedback and doing that outreach, once we have a draft plan? Because I'm hoping that could be probably June, July, which I know is not a great time. But again, if we're going to things that people are already at, maybe that would
Yeah.
help.
Jeremy, maybe you could ask the mayor if it might be possible to do something like an hour before a city council meeting or planning and zoning meeting, or a half hour before, that we did a presentation.
I was just gonna say that might be a better way to do it, because you're getting people already ready for a meeting.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
well,
you already have other city officials present at the meeting, whether it's council or P and Z.
Yeah,
so I'm just wondering if I could ask the mayor if we could even do it during.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just thinking of as part of one of those meetings.
When you said before that, like in the room, not time-wise
Yeah,
before.
no, I was thinking,
Okay,
how sometimes the city council meeting will start at 6 with a public meeting, or, or the planning and zoning will start with a public meeting. So rather than make their whole meetings go till 9 or 9:30, I'm just thinking starting at 6 or 6:30 instead for them,
Okay.
and maybe 6 o'clock for city council or something. That was just a thought, but I would respect whatever the mayor thinks on this one.
Okay.
And one other quick thing I wanted to mention to you guys, one of the things I was thinking about is, we're actually thinking about creating a hotline for people to share their stories of their housing needs, and or if they got, if they solved a housing crisis. And I'll get you guys more information once we have it up and running. But what we want to do is to be able to, again, sort of share stories of actual people in your actual city or town who are experiencing kind of housing insecurity and or have benefited from some of the affordable housing programs that that you have. So hoping to get that up and running, just so we can kind of share some of those stories maybe at the next community feedback forums.
but aren't those people who are going to be calling in expecting someone to get back to them with some help?
We will make it clear that that is not the purpose of
Okay,
that
all
it's
right.
just sharing your story. It's not a hotline for getting help.
Okay.
But yeah,
I think you have to make that very clear.
yeah, I'll once I have something outlined for how we were hoping to do that, I will share it with you all, and you can give me your feedback on it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. And I think we have our marching orders and, again, I'll say, you guys have any other thoughts, ideas, comments, feel free to email me or call me in between now and the next meeting. But thank you for your time. Sorry I kept you a few minutes extra.
That's okay. And I will take a photo of this article and send it out in an email to everyone. So you see what I'm talking about. And Jocelyn, thank you for all your work on this. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yes, I second that.
Great.
All right. Talk to you guys soon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Okay,
everybody.
thanks again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.